There are quite a few ways to do time travel in movies, and today I will be discussing all of them. Which ones make the most sense and which ones work the best for entertainment in movies. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. I'm Movie Micah. Thanks for clicking on this video. Time travel has always been a topic that I've been really interested in, and if you clicked on this video, I hope it interests you too. Let's get started by talking about Back to the Future and any other movie that follows that same time travel theory. Back to the Future uses the theory that things can be changed when you go to the past and they can directly affect your timeline. For example, if Marty's parents didn't get married, Marty would have never existed, and we start to see him cease to exist when his hand partly disappeared near the end of the movie. In this theory, you need to be careful if you go back in time because you could really mess up your present and future. Most time travel movies use this same theory. Obviously, this is the most interesting theory to use for film because there are higher stakes for the main character. But does this theory make the most sense? I'm going to answer that today. Back to the Future does time travel better than probably any other movie has done, and this is a great time travel theory to use for movies, in my opinion. But the time travel theory that I think makes the most sense is the fixed point theory, which is that whatever you do in the past, it has already happened and it can't be changed. If you travel to the past, you are already part of the timeline, and nothing you do could change anything in history. H.G. Wells' The Time Machine movie uses that theory a little bit, but in a different way. When Alexander goes to the past, he tries to save his girlfriend, and he does, but she dies in a completely different way this time, which suggests that you can't change someone's destiny. My personal theory is that no matter what you do in the past, she dies in the exact same way, but for movies they make it a little more interesting. Which theory do you think makes the most sense, or which theory do you think is better, Back to the Future or fixed point? There is one more interesting theory that isn't used or talked about as much. It is that when you go to the past, you create a time loop or a paradox. There are some really cool things to talk about with paradoxes, but I don't think I'll be able to explain them clearly in this video. There are a couple movies that use time loops, though. We see the days repeat in movies like and Edge of Tomorrow, and even a Phineas and Ferb episode. All of those examples feature the same day happening over and over, but the character can do different things each time. There's also a time loop segment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When Doctor Strange uses the Time Stone to defeat Dormammu, he uses a time loop, and he dies over and over again until Dormammu gives up. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Time loops can be very cool and interesting, but they're not the best time travel theory in my opinion. Another very interesting time travel theory is in the Terminator. In the Terminator films, it seems like there are some paradoxes. For example, in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, they highlight that Skynet was only invented because they found the body of the first Terminator from the first film. That means that Skynet all started because of its own future. If the Terminator wasn't sent back in time, Skynet wouldn't have even existed. This is a very interesting time travel theory that I find very fun and cool, but also a bit confusing. In the end, they also say that the timeline is entirely changeable. No fate is set in the timeline and anything can be changed. Overall, I like the time travel theory in the Terminator films, and it's honestly one of the coolest. Another example of a paradox in the Terminator films is that John Connor's father is actually from the future where John is an adult, and only when he went back in time is when he became John Connor's father. The theory used in the Terminator films is a great one overall. Now I'd like to talk about this fun little detail from Star Trek 2009. In Back to the Future Part 2, Doc Brown says that you can't meet yourself from the past or the future or a paradox will happen.
Oh, Jennifer.
Get out of town. Look,
But in Star Trek 2009, as you can see, future Spock met past Spock, so that's just a fun little detail that I decided to put in here. Some time travel films kind of make up their own theory, and that doesn't always work out for the best. I'm about to talk about two things that I really enjoy, but they don't have great time travel theories. First, I'm going to talk about the Doctor Who TV show. This show kind of made up its own time travel theory, which is that they can change the past. unless it's a fixed point moment in history. In the episodes The Fires of Pompeii and Vincent and the Doctor found that he was already part of the timeline and couldn't change anything. In both of these episodes, the Doctor went into the past and found that he couldn't change these moments in time because they were fixed point events in history. Then there are plenty of episodes where they do change small parts in the timeline. The theory is that they can change specific moments in time without disrupting the overall flow of time. I personally don't like this theory as much because it doesn't make sense how some things can be changed while others can't. This theory suggests that the universe decides what events have to be fixed and not alterable, and although I love the show, I don't prefer this time travel theory at all. Now we are talking about the Avengers Endgame time travel theory. Oh boy, don't get me wrong, I completely love Avengers Endgame. In fact, it might just be my favorite movie of all time. But the time travel theory that they made up for this film is one of the worst, if not the absolute worst. They tried to say that if they went back in time, they can basically do whatever they want, and it won't change a thing as long as they don't take an Infinity Stone.
The Infinity Stones create what you experience as the flow of time. Remove one of the stones, and that flow splits.
Then they also suggest that it's okay if they return the stone back to the moment it was taken.
We can erase it, because once we're done with the stones, we can return each one to its own timeline at the moment it was taken. So, chronologically, in that reality, it never left.
And even if they took the stone and didn't bring it back, it wouldn't affect them. It would only create a separate reality where things went worse.
Now this may benefit your reality, but my new one, not so much.
The endgame theory is another one where some things can be changed while others can't, which I really don't prefer. This is not a good time travel theory at all, but again, I really love Avengers Endgame overall, and I think this theory isn't meant to be thought about very much. Now, before I close out this video, comment below which time travel theory you think is the best. At the end of the day, I think if time travel existed, fixed point would be the real way that it works. I believe that if you go to the past, you are already a part of history, and you can't change a thing. And I can understand why that theory is not used in film as much, and that's because it's not as much of a threat to the character. With that said, the best theory to be used in movies would be the theory in Back to the Future. It makes for a great story when their future is on the line, and they have to be extremely careful. So if you're going to make a time travel movie, I would suggest using the theory from Back to the Future. Thanks for watching my video on time travel theories in film. If you enjoyed, click that like button so I can do more videos like this. This is Movie Micah signing off. I'll see you next time.